A story as well, crime novelist. How are you, Judge?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, Neil. How are you today?
Fantastic. Let's talk about your career first, and we're going to get into your books.
Well, I had a 32-year legal career in Washington, D.C. Beginning, I was an appellate attorney for several years, and culminating in my appointment as the chief judge at the Federal Trade Commission, where I presided over some really huge antitrust cases, and I had the privilege of presiding over the largest antitrust case in the history. And so I was in DC for a long time at a very high level, and it gave me I guess, my foundation understanding the politics of Washington.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting politics, right? Washington, D.C., sir.
Absolutely.
And what made you in your retirement want to write books just to kind of share those stories without giving it away,
Well,
right?
I've always been a writer in many ways. I think it started back in high school. I had a great English teacher who gave me a really solid foundation in English and grammar. And I also had somewhat of a stammer when I was a kid. So I found when I put a pen to paper, I could say anything. And I found I was a really very capable writer. So it served me well throughout my schooling and career. So I always knew I had it in me to be a writer. And then several years ago, I wrote my first novel called Prior Restraint, which was about terrorism in the media. And I think it came on the heels of, I think, 9/11, and what would terrorism look like if it came to this country. So that was my beginning. And so I've written three novels now, and all three deal with how power is exercised in Washington.
And do you think it's the best business with being, but even though it's not morally a good thing, the best business to get into politics? You can make a lot of money.
Well, quite a few of them do, so there must be something to it. I just think politics in this day and age, and my books are very nonpartisan. I don't take sides. I talk about politics and politicians, but I think most of them are pretty compromised
Yeah.
at this
Well, there is
juncture.
because there's money to be made. I mean,
Right.
think about it just in the stock market alone. How do they keep politicians from not gaining in the stock market with their family members and stuff like that, with getting insider trading, where they know exactly what's going to happen next? They knew about COVID before COVID.
Well, and
They knew
not
about
only that, but as you probably know, there are no, prohibitions against the politicians engaging in insider trading, unlike there is for everyone else. So obviously, there's a lot of benefits to becoming a congressman or a U.S. senator, and that's why these openings, when they occur, are so hotly contested.
so you're telling me there is nothing stopping politicians from insider trading.
Well, I won't say there's nothing. Maybe a sense of honor may prevail at times, but unless the rules have changed, which I'm not aware of, there's no illegality or rules that prevent politicians from engaging in insider trading.
That's crazy. And then you just get the secret. I mean, how many of those politicians knew that everything was going online to invest in online companies at that time with COVID? I mean, they knew that, or grocery stores, because
Right.
grocery stores would be flooded, and how Walmart and Target became so big at that time. It's crazy. So let's
Right.
talk about power. I'm going to go into my reasons for power, and you're going to talk about why I read these books for power. If you're trying to create something, as I'm trying to create in my brand, sir, I study people, how they grew in power, how they grew in influence. And sometimes not the best way, as you think about with Ghislaine Maxwell's father, how he grew through
Right.
media, or Jeff Bezos with Amazon with the Washington Post,
Right.
or even let's talk about specifically enough, other people buying media companies, buying sports teams, buying certain people. Because if you own a sports team, you really are building influence with lots of people that go to these events. So you use a media company, use a newspaper, you buy a sports team, you buy something that builds influence, that builds your power, because it's all about who you know. It's not what you know, right, Judge?
Well, and it's about having access to the corridors of power. And as you just mentioned, all those special interests are a power unto themselves. And so a lot of these people become even part owners in sports teams. And suddenly within a few years, their billion-dollar investment is now worth 5 or 6 billion. So they they're the kingmakers in this society, and they have the access to the money, and they control the media. They control these big industries within our country. And when you're on the ground floor, you're bound to succeed.
That's why I'm coming back into professional wrestling, just to build my brand further.
Yes.
And use it as a story, get involved in the media, movies, and then finally be on the ground, not just stuck in, since COVID, doing podcasting and radio
Right.
and television, but finally be on the ground, boots on the ground. Because it's great to do 1,000 Zooms, but at the end of the day, meeting somebody, having lunch with them, all those things. So Power, especially your last book, without giving it away, tell how people are going to learn how these politicians are gaining power in your last book.
Well, in my last book, is which we just published in I think September, is called Secret Deceit, and it's a pulsating thriller about a coup to assassinate the president of the United States by a cabal of corporate titans who are worried that the president's um, proposed legislative agenda is going to cost their industry billions of dollars in corporate profits. So they take measures to put him out of circulation, and in order to enrich their grasp on the pharmaceutical industry. So um, the protagonist is a Secret Service agent who conducts his own investigation of the president's death. When he finds the official investigation is really not progressing, and he soon learns who are some of the principals behind this uh, conspiracy. And in the meantime, the conspirators do everything in their power to hide their identity. And our hero's role puts his life in grave danger. So it's like I say, it's a pulsating thriller with lots of twists and turns, and but it just shows how corporations have the ability to advance their own agendas.
They totally have the agenda. So the power in corporations, I'm interested in learning about that without getting, these books seem intriguing because you as a judge saw all this happening.
Yes.
We see this in all these different movies, TV shows, like let's say organized crime, Law and Order Organized Crime. I had someone on from Law and Order Organized Crime a couple of weeks ago, been binge watching it. And it's the power of any type of power. And everyone wants to be part of that power, even if it's organized crime, right? People get involved in these things. And as a judge, you saw lots of corruption, correct?
Well, I won't say I saw lots of corruption. That's just the general environment that politics operates in within the Washington specter. And I like to think I don't come out and call it abject corruption as much as I say that most of the politicians in Washington are compromised. They have corporate sponsors that they're loyal to. And so, there's very few individuals on Capitol Hill that are free to do what's in the
The
best
best
interest
inference
of
for the
the
people.
country, or even in their own mind, what's in the best interest. So they've all got corporate sponsors that they owe most of their loyalty to.
So it's corporate sponsors. Like, let's say Monsanto is one of those big ones of the corporate organization that, again, does a lot of horrible things based on certain things. And one side's pro, one side's that. And the voting and the pork bills. as a judge, kind of take this, because I mean, everyone definitely needs to check out Secret Deceit. You have a brain that sees things in so many different ways, right? Of things that I would love. Again, you probably have a nice Rolodex. We don't call it a Rolodex anymore.
Yeah,
People you
right.
could reach out to specifically now saying, hey, Neil, and that's why I do this show, right? I've had Newt Gingrich on my show. I've had different people. Now I have something to bring to the table to these people, right? I
Right.
was talking to somebody, a bunch of different influential people today. It's like, wow, the whole thing when you talk about specifically your kind of picture yourself when you were a judge in Washington, D.C., without giving anything away, meaning you can't. What did you have to rule on and see these things happening in Washington?
Well, I made it very clear from the outset of my appointment as chief judge at the FTC that I was not going to allow politics to enter into the equation. And politics surrounded the entire process. But I was only interested in doing the right thing. And I didn't care what the outcome of a case was. I cared about establishing what we call the ultimate facts of the case and then applying the existing law to those facts. And whichever way the decision came down, I just wanted to be sure that it would withstand Court of Appeals scrutiny. And so I didn't let politics interfere in my decision making. And I was very proud of that posture. And, as we know, sometimes there are judges that follow their political leanings, but I didn't do that. I didn't allow my personal opinions to come into play.
Right.
And I was very proud of that process.
I'm very intrigued. I could sit down. You're in Florida. I'd love to when I ever come out to Florida to sit down and have dinner with you because I could just learn so much from you. And that's what you try to put into your books. Why
Right.
should people buy your book? And going the route of publishing through an indie publisher and still doing that process. Why it's so intriguing what you do, and through reading your books, they're going to understand the mind behind you in a
Right.
thriller crime. I'm sure you put a little bit that doesn't really happen,
Right.
but that brain of yours, and it's got to be exciting. It feels great to create these things and why people should buy your books.
Well, I put a great deal of effort not only into my characters, I make my characters so real that the reader can't help but think that what's happening is real. It's not just fiction. But I take the readers behind closed doors on Capitol Hill. I show them how power is exercised behind those closed doors
Yes.
and how politicians and their sponsors get legislation advanced and how things are processed in the interim. And it's for anyone that's ever watched the TV show House of Cards with Kevin
I
Spacey.
did. I love that
Well,
show.
you know that presents politics in somewhat of a jaded tone, and that's how my books are. It's not pretty to see how this all transpires, but I take the reader behind closed doors
I
and
love that.
not what is being said in the public arena, so you can really understand how power is exercised.
I was talking to your wife off air. I want to make your books the movies. So let's
Well,
definitely talk as Media Giant Productions, which I haven't announced yet. I have 100 different projects and it's exciting because I'm taking a quantum leap in 2024,
okay.
live streaming, and then we'll be live streaming 500 podcasts in live because anytime I record now, I'm just going to go live. But I appreciate it. And you know what? I could just ask questions all the time. But one thing about power at the end, I am hungry for power. The reason is so I can help others. It's not to, help myself grow to a certain point, but my power will employ lots of people, build all these things. But if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to read books like this and you need to study how people gain power. One thing I'll talk about ballers, how Dwayne The Rock Johnson, who wore my knee pads, FYI, people know that he took the dream of ballers, which was just fictional,
Right.
and has created it in his story now with the WWE. How he came back, became equity of that, has an energy drink now, has the whatever the XFL is called now. He's taken all these different projects with his brand and built them to power.
Right.
And that means, you know, for a fact, The Rock can get a meeting with anybody. And I
Well,
bet you, go
I
ahead.
have learned that it's not a quantum leap to go from having a bit of the notoriety to become a well-established person within the corporate media and culture. And I'm sure you understand that a lot better than most people do. So I understand how Rock has developed um, his market
Right.
into becoming the super persona that he is today.
Last
So
point. Jeff
yeah,
Bezos took 20 years to profit with his company, and he pretty much is the most powerful person in the world. He got those relationships. It didn't happen overnight. The people think in 3 months they're going to become multi-billionaires or millionaires, whatever. It's a process. You got to put in the work. Alex
right,
Ramosi talks about this as well. And I'm really big in the studying of brand, and
right,
power relates to brand in so many ways, sir.
right. And understanding how power works is the key. A lot of people might have the best of intentions, but don't really get um, the twists and turns that enable them to advance their brand within the media structure. And again, I surmise that that's not always a pretty pathway to go down either, but it is what it is. So if you're going to pursue power, you need to understand it.
Awesome. Well, where can we pick up your books? Because I'm sold on what you're talking about. And I think that you just really, because you're not going to find someone as talented as this man writing these books because he's lived it. Where can we go?
Well, you can go on my website, Stephen, the McGuireAuthor.com. It's Stephen with a Phen, and you can see a full biography of myself and my three books. Are There's a synopsis. Go on Amazon Books where my books are being sold, and type in my name or type in the name of any of my three books. Prior Restraint, Fractured Power, and Secret Deceit, and you can find out all that you need to know from those sources. And you can, on my website, send me a question, which I'd be happy to answer. And I look forward to entertaining some new readers.
All right.